Hello, hello, and welcome to my first book review. Uh, haven't done this before for book reviews, but I'm just thinking about doing this for different things. And this book came up out of nowhere, and I'll explain. But I'm going to use Fridays as a book review day. I'm not sure how long or how often I'm going to do it, whether it be every Friday or whenever I get done with a book and post a video on Friday, but that's what I'm thinking. Book review Fridays. This book, Under the Oak Tree by Kim Jee. Um, how did I discover this book? Well, I play in a game, I get advertisements. Well, I first should explain I am a soldier stationed in Korea. Okay? And this book is originally written in Korean, but it's been adapted into English, and there's this comic that's kind of been online and everything. And the comic was kept being advertised to me on my phone. Like every advertisement was just that, and I'm like, okay, I don't care. What is this? And then it kept saying like, all right, we were married, we had our wedding night, and then for 3 years he left after the wedding night. Didn't hear anything from him. In 3 years he returns. He's the biggest knight in the continent. He wouldn't really want me, would he? And I'm just like, okay. But it kept asking me to read it, read it. I'm like, fine, I'll freaking look it up and read it. Now, the comic online only covers the first 50 chapters. And you're probably wondering, like, how do I know that? Well, because it ended at 50 chapters, and seemingly I read, like, wait, there's more, I was like, okay, I'll go find the rest. And I did. It's like 257 chapters or something like that. And I read the whole story. Okay? And you'd be like, wow, for someone who wasn't interested in it, you read the whole story? I will explain. Thus, this book review. Uh, as far as the comic, the manga, or whatever type comic you want to explain, it's beautifully drawn and everything. I liked it. Um, I was just kind of confused, like, okay, is this just a romance thing? What is this? And going back to the actual written chapters and comparing it to the manga thing, uh, those parts. uh, it's very intimate in those parts. It talks all about their how they have intercourse and everything, and I'm just like, okay, this is smut, right? I'm reading smut. Why am I reading this? I don't want to read this. But then the chapter when she finally gets to, uh, to the land, Anatole, and she does the whole thing with the tree with Ruth, Maximillian. I'm talking about the characters more in a moment, but the part that kind of hooked me in the comic was when they're at the oak tree and he's doing the whole mana thing, and she has some of the mana, magic like attached to her, and he's like, "Oh, you might be mana sensitive," and she's like, "What?" I was like, "Okay, what is this? What does this mean? Mana sensitive?" My curiosity got piqued, and that's why I kept reading. All those parts I just like push aside. So I just didn't want to read any of that, quote unquote. But once you get past the point in the comic after chapter 50 and you start getting more into the story, it's actually a very good story. I was surprised. It's just like, you know what? I'm enjoying this. I had a thing where I could basically, he's like, you know what? I've read it this far. I'm going to try to read the whole thing in a day. And I finished it all in a certain day. I was like at 150 chapters and I finished the rest of it in a day. Uh, it actually is a legitimately great story. The main character is Maximillian Qua. I'm not sure how do you say the Croix name. I'm thinking it's like LaCroix or LaCroix or however you freaking say it. I'm thinking Croix. But Maximillian marries Riftan, the knight, and she, of course, he gets his last name of Calypse or Calypse. I'm saying Calypse. And she becomes his wife. She has a terrible stutter. At least more in the beginning, she has a terrible stutter. She's never been outside the castle, like barely a few times, if anything, but her father beats her, and the magicians heal her and everything. It's set in the medieval time of Europe. Oh, by the way, I'm going to get in a little bit of spoilers, I guess, if you've not read it, or if you only read the comic, which I guess advertised on Manta is like going to post the quote second season. So I was like, oh, okay, probably the next 50 be my guess. That's seemingly how it's kind of situated. But Maximillian can't really talk or whatever. She's very, doesn't know Riftan at all because he disappeared for 3 years. Though it seemingly hinted that he did try sending for her and trying to take her, to be at his, land and everything, but her father wouldn't necessarily have that. So it's like her father is very controlling because he wants the younger sister, whose name escapes me for the moment. I don't know why. He wants the younger sister to really marry into the royal family. And since the older sister, Maximillian, can't really speak stutter-wise, and she has a very bad self-esteem and self-image and everything, she doesn't really think she's worth anything, like, at all. She doesn't even know why she was even married and that her husband hates her and he wants to divorce her and everything. And despite all her thoughts that he wants to divorce me, he wants to get rid of me, he wants to go with this Princess Agnes, who's like this beautiful princess, who's also like a wizard type thing for the kingdom. He's like, nah, I don't want to do any of that. I just want you. And she's like, wait, what? Oh yeah, the moment in the barn. Some other characters, Ruth, the magician, who's not an official wizard, but he's wizard, you can say a name only in a way, but he's at this place called the World Tower where all the wizards have to go and train, but he left it, and Agnes and others consider him a traitor in a lot of ways, but he is very good at what he does to a point. And while they were traveling on the way to Anatole, Maximillian, never traveled anywhere, and she's kind of cold. He gives her a mana stone, which causes, low heat that keeps her warm. But that starts a budding friendship between her and Ruth. And she starts, this is, after chapter 50, this is where it gets interesting. And this is where I was like, okay, this is actually interesting. There's like an attack while Riftan's away, where the Remdragon Knights, which means white dragon, him and the Knights, they're profound. Riftan's able to like one shot, like a huge dragon by himself because of all the stuff he has. I'm not going to get into it. But she goes with Ruth to help tend to these knights and workers who were wounded by monsters near the palace. And it's during like wintertime, and it's rough. She sees a lot of broken bones, a lot of just nastiness and everything. But she sees Ruth is able to physically heal a few with magic. All the rest she has to do herbs and, just binding up wounds and everything like that. She has to sew like stitches, and then she throws up a couple times and everything, but she hangs in there. Which is like, okay, for someone who's been sheltered by force her whole life, she's doing well. And Ruth gives her advice on how to, spruce up the castle, how to do everything, because, Riftan, or at least Maximilian's point of view, because that's how this book kind of follows. There is supposedly a Riftan point of view, but I haven't read that yet. Or I guess I could read it sometime, but I'm focusing on this. But that Maximillian, she learns how to, decorate the castle and everything. Riftan thinks, or her point of view is that Riftan thinks she's so higher up there and everything like that. She's so sophisticated, and she to herself is like, I'm not. But she's learning to be, which is very interesting. Oh man, I could spoil a lot of this book. I don't want to spoil it too much because then you're going to just have to read it. But I'm going to skip over a lot of things, but she meets Agnes. Agnes is not the stuck-up person that she thinks she is. Yeah, she's beautiful, but, Riftan's basically insulting her to her face with his non-care attitude, and she's just laughing her head off. Because it's like, oh, that's just how he is. But the fact that Riftan wouldn't want to be with her, but he wants to stay with Maximillian, just kind of changes her and everything. And despite, her hesitancy from the Knights and her about kind of meeting with each other, the Knights towards the end, they respect her, and they, grow to love her and everything, and she grows to, kind of be like in their inner circle and just be strong with them and everything, compared to how they arrive like, oh yeah, it's the commander's wife, to like, no, this is our lady at the end, because they at the end they quote unquote almost go on to go to war, with her father's place. Like they did declare war, but I don't want to get into all the details with that, but I guess I'd have to if I explain what I think for book 2, because there's a book 2, but I don't want to. I haven't started reading that yet. I want to hold off because I got other things I need to be reading. I was so much trying to do this review now. I'm just thinking there's so much actually to unpack um, from this book because it actually, again, it's surprising. You think, okay, it's just a love story, and yeah, it has a lot of those parts because Riftan and Maxie, they're a married couple, and they go at it a lot. But it when it gets into what the plot and just story progression and everything, it gets really good. It's actually just like, wow, I actually want to see what's next. I want to see what happens. It has a lot of political intrigue that goes on towards the end of the book. It has this huge war up in the north where all the kind of kingdoms have to go and fight this giant troll army and they have to defend this area. See, because Ruth's a wizard and because of the event I was mentioning earlier, Maximillian sees maybe it's good to maybe for me to learn magic in order to help out with this. And Riftan, he's not he's controlling in the sense that he just wants to protect her and not have her do anything because he wants to take care of everything. He just wants to take care of her. He doesn't want her necessarily do anything. And yeah, okay, but the thing is with Maximilian is that she's trying to grow and trying to become her own person, and that's what she's actually doing. And even though, yeah, it's an intimate moment, there was a very good moment where he was trying to be overprotective and not everything like that during a moment, and he breaks off, the moment, and she's just in the heat of the moment saying, like, no, you're not going to do that. I am not someone you're just going to coddle and just protect all the time. I'm not someone you're just going to protect. I am your wife. And I was like, oh, she's standing up for herself. And she does. She stands up to Riften at times, even though she goes basically on a war path to find out where he's at in a war. She escapes all the way up there, hides among, like, quote-unquote priestesses, but basically, I guess you can say nuns. Wait, they're not priestesses, right? Basically, they're like nuns. Yeah, basically, you can kind of say in a way. She hides among them with another royal lady, and she gets all the way up there, but because she's been learning magic, I won't say how, but she ends up saving the day. And I was like, wow. It's not something you're expecting, even though it gets really harsh in the battle moments that you see, especially with certain details I won't reveal to you because it's like, oh man. But it gets really harsh in some ways, and you feel for everything going on. But it's really good. I don't know what else to say. If you haven't checked it out, I'd actually recommend reading it. I would. It's actually that good of a read to do. Of course, it's in original Korean, but I found a website online that I found it in English. You can probably find it. Again, there's a book 2. I could kind of get into what I want to say for book 2, what I expect to happen and everything, but I won't simply because I don't want to necessarily give any more spoilers than what I have. But the imagery and everything that went on was very good. I liked this world that was being made and everything else going on. The only thing, if I had to give a ranking, my ranking would be an 8 out of 10. One, because, yeah, all the intimate sex moments, that's not something I want to be reading. And the other thing is, at least from the Manta comic or whatever, and reading that online, the Roof's explanations of what mana and magic is and all that is just like, what? I had to kind of read it several times to try to understand. I don't know if it's the translation from Korean into English that's causing a little bit of an issue, or it's just the way it's being described and I just don't get it. That was a little bit of a confusing thing. I was like, huh? But the application of it is like, okay, that's cool. Of how everything was going on. I really want to start spoiling. In order to talk about this, I really have to spoil it, but I don't want to spoil it. And I don't want to get into stuff for book 2 because I just screw it up. I really want to just spoil it. Because there's so many different interesting things that happens with her father, her sister, Agnes, Riften, Maximillian, herself. It's just, you see this person in the beginning that thought everyone hated her and no one loved her or could love her. Simply that was that. No one could love her or anything. That's one other issue is that despite it's obvious they love each other, there's no actual word that Riftan and her actually say "I love you" to each other yet. They haven't actually said that yet. Which is just like, are you gonna say it or not? Like her sister comes out and says, "Do you love him?" And she doesn't give a straight answer on that. And it's like, why don't you two just say you love each other already? Come on. I really like Riftan's moment at the end when you get to the end of the book, how he handles a situation, how he responds, and then you see how he actually responds at the very end. I just like, man, Rifton's complex. He's very complex and everything. It's just passionate, not in a Romeo type of way, who's just does anything on a whim. He's not. He's not Romeo. Like how this is being kind of reviewed and told online that I've seen, it's like a flawed love of the flawed. Which is like, well, the thing is with Maximillian is that besides her self-worth and selfness against herself, she's not really flawed. Okay, she has a bad stutter, like a bad stutter, but towards the end, she's overcoming it. She's doing better. Riftan, he's got, despite all his power and might, he's very insecure in some ways, and he doesn't want to lose what he holds dear. Because he holds Maximillian dear and beyond what you could say a rational person would. Now that's the thing. It's the smothering of it, which is what Maximillian starts to try to break away from, and hopefully Riftan in book 2 recognizes that's his issue. So if you want to read and everything, you can find it online and you can read it. Just if you're worried about those moments, yeah, there's a lot, and you can like, okay, maybe skip those. But other than that, it's well worth a surprising read. So, all right. You can if you post on this video and you've read it already, I'm sure you can talk what happens in it, but don't spoil book 2. I know a couple details from reading some comments on stuff, kind of some things that happen in book 2, but I don't want to read everything yet. All right, so see you next time, and thank you for joining me for this Book Review Friday.